This is Red for Real, and today we're going to be taking a look at copyright and fair use and how it applies to YouTube. Many of you have probably heard that several prominent YouTubers have been hit with copyright infringement lawsuits, and many more channels have been hit with copyright strikes by YouTube. So we're just going to take a couple minutes to go over the fair use rules. So if you are making YouTube videos containing copyrighted material, you'll have a better understanding of them and hopefully be able to avoid getting a copyright strike. I'd first like to say this is not intended to give legal advice. This is just intended to give you a better understanding of how YouTube interprets fair use. So the first place we're going to go is the YouTube Fair Use webpage, and they outline the 4 factors of fair use. These 4 factors are almost identical to the 4 factors in the U.S. Copyright Act, and that's over here at copyright.gov. It's section 107 of the Copyright Act, and they list the same 4 factors as YouTube. So the first factor is the purpose and character of the use and whether it's for profit or not for profit. The first thing that needs to be considered is it transformative. This basically means, are you creating an original work? So if you are taking a copyrighted material, you have to do something to transform that copyrighted work into your own original idea and work. It can't just be a copy of the originally copyrighted work. Basically, you have to give your own interpretation of it, your own spin on it. You have to change it somehow to make it your own personal original work. The second factor is the commercial or not profit. That really doesn't, the courts don't put any weight on that. It looks like YouTube does put a little bit of weight on that. Here, I believe this is from the Sargon of Akkad case, but if you look at any case where somebody has made a copyright infringement claim and somebody has raised a fair use defense, you'll find this language or something very similar to it. And they're just basically saying everything in this country is done for profit in one way or another. So this second half of this doesn't really apply to court cases. However, YouTube does still recognize this, and you can see this in the possible to monetize a video. So if you're looking at this to try and avoid getting a copyright strike, or if you do, being able to raise a fair use defense, you may want to consider not trying to monetize that video just to help protect yourself as far as YouTube's concerned. The second factor YouTube looks at is the nature of the copyrighted work. This too has gone by the wayside somewhat in the courts, but they still do mention it. And YouTube and the courts are basically the same on this. Purely fictional works are considered more inherently entitled to the copyright laws. So if you are taking snippets from a purely fictional work, it's less likely that you'll be able to get a fair use defense than if you are taking something from a purely factual work, like a newspaper article or something along those lines, as opposed to a fictional novel, a movie, a TV show, something along the fictional lines. Again, the courts don't put a lot of weight on that. With how little information YouTube has given here, it doesn't look like they put a great amount of weight on that either. But it is something to consider if you are using copyrighted material, whether that material is from a factual source, such as the news, or if it's a fictional source, such as a comic book or a movie or something along those lines. The third one is the amount of the original work used in your work. So there's no set in stone formula for this. It's basically what they're looking at is how much you took, if that's considered what they consider the heart of the work, or if it's, supplemental. So I guess the best way to look at this is, let's say you wanted to make a video criticizing my video for the audio, and you said, look how bad this guy's audio is. You would only need a snippet of this to to show how bad my audio was. So you could take a snippet from anywhere in this video. So if you use this entire video to show how bad my audio was, and you're saying that that was your transformative work, was criticizing my audio, and you use the whole video, that would be a poor fair use defense. However, if you wanted to criticize my coverage of the 4 factors of fair use, then you would need to show more of this video in your transformative original work. So if you used the majority of this and criticized everything I said along the way, it would be harder for me to raise a copyright infringement claim against you, as opposed to if you use this full video and we're just criticizing my poor audio. So it really, there's no set in stone formula for this. It's really what they're looking for is, did you take a reasonable amount to prove the point you were trying to make your own transformative original work. So it really, this is going to be at your own judgment, but just kind of keep in mind, less is more. Am I taking the minimal amount that I need to prove the point that I'm trying to prove? And that's probably the best way to consider this third factor. Now, the last factor is probably the one that causes the most trouble. And what this is the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Now, and the description they give of this doesn't really give a lot of clarification to that. Uses that harm the copyright owner's ability to profit from his or her original work are less likely to be fair use. Courts have sometimes made an exception under the factor in cases involving parodies. Now, one of the core elements of fair use is criticism. And criticism, by its nature, is intended to potentially harm the profit of the original work being criticized. I mean, that's why you criticize something, is to prevent other people from enjoying it. You're trying to suppress it. You're saying that this is not worth your time, this is not worth your money, things along those lines. Under fair use, that's fine. That's a traditional fair use defense, is criticizing work. What they're really looking for as far as the profit of the original work is, are you siphoning off their profit into your own profit? So to go back to my example of somebody criticizing this video for my poor audio, if you made a video saying, look how bad this guy's audio, played my entire video, then I could say, you're criticizing me, yes, but you're also providing the person with the content that I am trying to present. So if somebody wanted to watch my video or was interested in this subject, they could just watch your criticism of it and get all the original intent of my video from your video. So let's see if we can find a better description of that than the one I just gave. So I think this is from the Sargon of Akkad case, and they use this term, the secondary used substitutes for the original. And that's kind of like what I was trying to say, whereas somebody could just watch your video and get all the content from my video, everything, the work that I was trying to present from your video. So that is what the courts at least mean by destroying the potential market of that video. So it's not just that you're criticizing them or you're trying to downplay the amount of views they get or the amount of subscriptions if it's a newspaper or magazine, but it has to be that you are siphoning off people that would go to the original work, and you're just basically recopying the original work so that they get that value from you instead of the original creator. The one other thing to consider that's not in these 4 factors but should be considered is whether the target of the copyrighted work, if they share a same user base or a same customer base as you. And what I mean by that is if you're making video game reviews and the person you're criticizing is making video game reviews, then they're going to have a stronger claim that you are siphoning off or hurting their profits, potential profits, because the person watching your video would have been more likely to watch their video. Now, if you are doing something like makeup tutorials and you criticize somebody that makes video game reviews, it's less likely that the viewers of your channel would also be viewing the other channel. So it's less likely that your criticism or your use of their copyrighted material would affect their profit or their views or whatever you want to call it. So I hope that's been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments and I will try and answer them if I can. And again, I am very new to this. Any advice would help. Have a good day. Thank you.